Ready?
Take it away, Sarah.
All right. Well, here we are, second to last week. Um, I did not put, I put, and I think, is it Wells or Wellis? I think it's Wells.
Hmm.
It
That's a good
is.
question. In my head,
No,
I pronounce it Wells.
it
I do
is
too.
because I just remembered. I just, full disclosure, I woke up with a raging migraine today, took some meds, went back to sleep. I'm here, but I feel very foggy. So, but we got this. So I'm just, okay. So Wells, let her get, hi, Lynn.
And then,
All right. Okay. So I think like after I read the chapter, like all I could think when I thought of Wells was, wow, like I, Wells is the type of person I strive to be. Lacrosse player, protector, economics major, firefighter, market trader. He kind of uh, did everything he did, he seemed to do with intent and a purpose. And so for those of you, did everybody read the chapter? Okay, so we know what he did that caused him to be known as a hero. And as I was reading the chapter, and as soon as it got to where it said, and it was like on that day, September 11th, and I went, oh, like it was just kind of like, because you knew where it was going. So in thinking about that, I'm interested to know if any of you have a heroic story, either somebody that was a hero at a time in your life or somebody that you um, stepped up for. I mean, hero is a big word, and I feel like it's kind of like a big title. So if you don't like thinking about it as heroism, was there ever a time in your life where somebody did something major for you or vice versa? Come on, I know we're all heroes. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and give my story. A couple years ago, Jackson, it was, oh gosh, it was more than a couple years ago now that I think about it. It was a Christmas that Jackson was with his dad Christmas morning. And so I had stayed at my mom's on Christmas Eve and was headed home on Christmas Day to change. And Jackson was coming home, and then we were going to my grandma's. And I was on the expressway. And about two cars in front of me, there was a car that all of a sudden spun around, spun into the median, bounced off the guardrail, and stopped. And I think because I think it would have been different had I had Jackson in the car, but because I didn't have Jackson in the car, I just pulled over and got out. The car was smoking. There was about three other cars that did too. The car was smoking, and there was a man in the median. He had been thrown from the car. He was fine. He was good, like he was alive. But then I get to the car, and the woman is driving, and there's two kids in the back seat. So the kids are, again, they're fine. They're crying. And the one little boy's door was open. He had a seatbelt on, but he was so he unhooked his seatbelt, and I just like gobbled him up, and I took my sweatshirt off and I wrapped it around him because it's Christmas. And then I kind of just took the kids in while everybody else worked on the parents. And then to look in the car, and there was a big old 40-ounce spilling in the passenger seat beer. So I think maybe we were enjoying a little Christmas spirits in the morning, but that was my moment. Like I said, would I have stopped had I had Jackson? I'm not sure. Because at the time Jackson would have been really little and he wouldn't have stayed in the car or understood, you know what I mean? And so, but for me, and then when I saw that there were children in the car, I kind of stayed until other family arrived. And obviously the emergency, the squad. I will say that, come to find out, for my friends of mine, that was their family members. I felt good about what I did. They obviously did not, because Santa brought them a cell for Christmas and their children had to go be with other family members after the fact. But the kids were safe and unharmed, and that, I guess, was most important. So it was a good feeling for a crappy reason. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So, I mean, I felt good that they were good, but I didn't feel good that I had to deal with that situation. Like, you just shouldn't have to when it comes to kids. Parents should do better. So if a heroic story comes up, flag me and we'll go back.
I'll give you one.
Okay.
It's not really, oh, maybe it's a little bit heroic. I picked up my son at high school one day, and as we were driving away on one of the side roads, a fight had broken out amongst two of the students. A very big white kid and a very skinny black kid. And the black kid was getting the crap beat out of him, and they were using all kinds of negative, nasty racial slurs at him, and a gaggle of teenagers had gathered around this fight. And you can guess what they were doing. They all had their phones out and they were recording it all, and nobody was doing anything to help this kid. And I pulled over and said, "Oh, heck no, I ain't having this." And my son was like, "Oh my God, Mom, please don't get out of the plane." Because he's like, "Mom, they will annihilate you. Like, it's no joke. Like, please don't interfere." I said, "Jake, I have to. Like, this kid's getting the crap beat out of him." So I was able to get out and be enough of a distraction. I'd like to say they listened to me and they stopped fighting and they behaved and they hugged it out. Not the case. But I did provide enough of a distraction because I put myself kind of in the middle of it long enough to get the very large security guard to come over from the high school, who they all had a healthy, appropriate fear of, but they also knew he loved them dearly, but they respected him enough to listen to him. He came and was able to, hold these two boys and break up the fight. But I feel like I saved this kid an annihilation, because and maybe a trip to the hospital, because they had this little scrawny kid on the ground and they were pummeling him, and it was very, very, very upsetting. But these dang kids, guys, nobody was helping. They were all just standing around filming it on their phones. It was very upsetting. But I feel like maybe I saved him a trip to the hospital.
Sounds like you probably did. I know.
Sounds like you did too.
It's so frustrating that people are so into getting the next social media post, or, it's rather than just doing the right thing.
Mhm.
Well, I could definitely say I don't think Wells was like that.
No.
Mhm.
He seemed to always do. This, I think it comes directly from the book. A mysterious man appeared at one point, his mouth and nose covered with a red handkerchief. He was looking for a fire extinguisher. As Judy Wine recalls, he pointed to the stairs and made an announcement that saved lives. Anyone who can walk, get up and walk now. Anyone who can perhaps help others, find someone who needs help and then head down. I just, the mysterious man, like it just reminded me of like a TV show, somebody coming out in the smoldering smoke and like the saves the day. I mean, obviously we know nobody saved that actual day, but thanks to people like him, it helped where it could. The red bandana is obviously very significant. Right here at the bottom, it is an article. I kind of, again, went down a rabbit hole as I Googled Wells. I was in awe of all of the things that there are. There is actually something that I do want to share with you. Oh, no, sorry. I think I'm going to have to, oh gosh, why did I do this, Corey?
There you go. You might have, if you didn't hit that optimize sound, you might have to do it again.
Oh, shoot, that's right.
Yeah. So you have to unshare and then reshare and then hit.
I know this recording thing is in front of me. I feel, what am I doing? Sorry, guys. Okay. There's all these windows that get open. Nope. Oh,
If you drop the link in chat, I can open it on my other screen if you want.
gotta find it again. What did your son think after you did that?
He was
When?
glad I did it, but he feared for me. He was like, please, Mom, please don't get out of the car because it's not going to end well for you. And I mean, he appreciated what I did, but he was a little bit upset with me because he didn't think it was safe.
Yeah.
And he knew the tone, and they would just, kind of ignore me, which they kind of did. But he was worried, they would say something to me that was unkind or worse.
Yeah. All right, Corey, how do I do the sound?
You have to unshare. And then when you go to hit screen share before you actually share it, there'll be a little optimized sound or use computer audio or something to that effect.
Share sound. There, I'll just sing for you guys. How about that? Just kidding. I won't do that for you, to you.
Wells Crowther played lacrosse at
You hear
Boston
it?
College. On and
Yep.
off the field, he earned a wonderful reputation of an incredible team player and lived his life selflessly until the ultimate and tragic example of that.
In 2001, Wells Crowther was an equities trader working on the 104th floor of the World Trade Center South Building. And at 24 years of age, he faced a choice that few of us could ever imagine.
It seemed as if there was no way out. And then there came a voice. They didn't know his name. They didn't know where he came from. But they knew their lives had been saved by the man in the red bandana.
Wells was in his office on the 104th floor of the World Trade Center when tragedy struck. He didn't hesitate and sprang into action, helping those around him. Among the chaos, he became a voice of calm, of hope. Wearing his red bandana, Wells fought back flames with fire extinguishers, tended to the wounded, and led people downstairs to safety. He carried a woman on his shoulders down 17 flights, and after getting her to safety, made the trek back up those stairs to bring more wounded down. On that day, Wells stood side by side with firefighters and gave his last, saving the lives of 18 people who knew him only as the man in the red bandana.
His courage and bravery led the PLL to name its humanitarian award after him. And the winner is Scott Ratliff.
Wells was put in a circumstance that we pray that nobody else in this room would ever be put in, but in that circumstance, he chose to put other people ahead of himself. And I've always had this belief or this dream that I could change the world, and I believe you can change the world just by impacting one person. And the way you do that is you put other people ahead of yourselves. And so it's really humbling, and it's a really big honor to be up here and to accept this award with that name on it. And lastly, I do want to thank my parents, who are a huge example for me, and have always encouraged me to be somebody that put other people first and try to follow my dreams and follow my heart. Thank you.
You guys, he's a baby.
So he's like so little.
Wow.
When United Flight
Where'd
175
it
struck the
go?
South Tower at 9:03, Wells Crowther
Here we
was
go.
on the 104th floor.
There we go. Okay. All right. So what do we think about him? He is pretty extraordinary.
The tearjerker.
I know. It is, you want to think like, can I be like that person? Can I run into that building and put myself, I don't know. Can any
I
of
don't
you
think-
confident? Like, I don't know until I get there if I could.
I really don't think he thought about it. I think he just did it. I think he
Well,
just did it for humankind.
I think reading the book, I think that's what he was built for. Like, it said like he was protector of his sisters, and like it wasn't anything they had to tell him to do. It was just kind of who he was. So, and being a firefighter, and like it just kind of, that's just, I want to think that I'm a natural born protector, nurturer, but when the building's falling down around me, I don't know if I would go back in. I would probably help along the way. I don't know. I hope I never have to find out.
I don't know about you guys. It makes me angry that he died.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it makes me angry that everybody died on that day. That they had like, just an unnecessary act. But the lighthouse effect, this one is selflessness. And what do you think it takes to be selfless?
Being
I
a
don't think
mother.
right. Like, I don't really think people understand the multitude of that word, because selfless doesn't come easy.
Mm-mm. No, I think though, when you become a mother,
Mm.
you own that characteristic. Maybe not in all aspects of your life, but certainly toward your child.
So even, yes, definitely as a mother, I mean, I definitely viewed children differently. I think even the kids that I cared for all these years in
Mhm.
babysitting and at the center. But as an educator, like, think about all of the time and the money and the energy that it goes into being a teacher and a director. And yes, we are getting paid to do it, correct? Absolutely. But I know I speak for many educators that say we go beyond the job description. And we do it because we love the kids we take care of. We love the field. And I mean, that, again, not everybody can be selfless, and not everybody can put people in front of them, and not everybody can do for others. And I definitely think educators are huge lighthouses, for sure. Purposeful goodness. So what does it take to be selfless? Purposeful goodness. What does that mean? Exactly what it says. Being purposeful with your goodness. He called his parents to make sure they knew that he was okay at the time, and they didn't have to worry. He thought about his parents and their anguish. Issued commands with purpose and making people feel safe. Like, he appeared out of nowhere, and his voice just had them do what he asked them to do. And then going back in to save more. If there's no more purposeful goodness than that, putting yourself back in the line of danger to save other people. This guy's a true lighthouse. Oops, what am I doing? Finding the greater good. We share a common space and therefore a common future. You know, as mothers, people, educators, where do you find your greater good? Come on, guys. None of you have greater good?
I think we're thinking.
Okay. Okay, you can do that. I will say, so it comes straight from the book. For some, serving the greater good is a need as a primal of that of self-preservation. For Wells, in a moment of considerable crisis, the greater good came from his faith, the lessons instilled in him by Allison and Jeff, and the code of his firefighter training. So, I mean, obviously the greater good comes from within, right? I mean, if you have a good heart and you're empathetic, like you want to do good. But because of his faith and the way that he was raised, as educators, we see a lot of different walks of life. We know the kids that are going to struggle a little bit more because of the environments they live in. We know the ones that are probably have more resources to be successful. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be more successful. But all of that stuff instilled helps you find your greater good, whether you're fighting against something that you didn't want in your childhood and you wanted to be a better person, or something that you were just raised with. As educators, it's not hard to think of your greater good. What is our greater good? We're putting out little people into society that we want to be successful. That's a huge.
And you know, over and over and over again in these stories and others, isn't it amazing how impactful your childhood can be?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I was born, you know, I was raised by June and Ward Cleaver. Like, they didn't fight in front of us when we were kids. You know, I mean, it was quite a loving, you know, typical childhood. But I know not everybody gets to experience that. Whoops. Got ahead. Oh no. Telling myself stop. Jeez. This bar at the front. Oh God. I'm struggling today, guys. I told you this headache. Melanie, stop laughing at me.
I just know this happens to me anytime I do it.
Oy vey. Okay. Melanie, where do you find your greater good? You can't tell me that you can't think about that. I know you better than this.
As far as in my greater good, my greater purpose, I think sometimes that kind of changes with where I'm at or what I'm doing. But overall arching, whenever you talk about faith, there's a scripture that says, and I just looked it up, and I kind of think about this whenever you said that he found his greater good in his faith, or he was obviously very solid about what was going to happen to him regardless. But there is a scripture in Philippians 1:21 that says, for to me, to live is Christ and to die is gain. So he had to have been seeing that situation, and as a firefighter, knowing there was a very, very good chance that he was not going to make it out, and he was going to do what he could with the time that he had. Is that I just believe that he had that solid belief that regardless of what happened, the greater good was going to win out, regardless if he lived or if he died. That's just kind of the way I view it.
Thank goodness I can't imagine doing anything. I mean, I wish I could say I was that person, and maybe I am. But yeah, these chapters, I kind of really, it took me longer, I think, to do the slides because I went down a rabbit hole of finding all the videos and the articles on Wells, but I'm just in awe of people like that. And sacrificing for another. The question for the world today is not what will we sacrifice for our own success, but what will we sacrifice so that others might succeed? And I mean, I think that's definitely putting selfless into words there. It's not doing what's best for you.
I think as a country, we're getting away from that, you guys.
Oh, I think we got away from it a long time ago, unfortunately.
It's disheartening. Like, I think back that sentence that you just read reminds me of Kennedy's "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." We don't have that a lot anymore. It's me.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I needed
money.
No. Oh, okay, good. I didn't know if I still had. Okay. Right. So I do have, please. There we go. So in the book, they talk about, the big thing that that made him want to go to Boston College was the Linden Lane. So I just kind of giving you guys a visual of what that is. And that's obviously in the fall. How pretty is that? To be able to walk, that'd be your campus. And to the right is the labyrinth that's behind the library of all of the students and faculty that in the area that had died on 9/11. And at the bottom there is Wells' name. And they said sometimes you can find a red bandana around it. So I did want to, and this is only a minute, because I'm not sure if you read a lot of, they do a 5K, they have a football game where everybody, football game where everybody has the red bandanas. The team wears the red paisley. If you Google that, some of the guys that even had red paisley, like football gloves, they had red paisley cleats. And it's something that still goes on today, all of that. Can you see that?
I'm Allison Crowther. I'm the mother of Wells Remy Crowther, who's become known as the man in the red bandana around the world for saving at least 12 lives on September 11th at the attacks of the World Trade Center.
I was filled with happiness for him, that he was able to literally die with his boots on, that he was able to do all those good things and do what he truly wanted to be doing. The story of how a regular person can do so much good inspires people.
We hope that you carry this red bandana as a connection to Wells and a connection to the idea that the power lies within each and every one of you to make good come into this world every day.
I just love feel-good stories. All right, there we go. So anything else about Wells?
Again, I can't help it. I'm angry. Like, what would this kid have done if he had 64 years, 84 years instead of 24 years? I mean, it's just, why was this light? Because clearly he was a light. Why was it extinguished so early? it just makes me mad.
I agree. All right, so the next one, our next term, I'm not even gonna pretend, so I'm just gonna say Monica and Rajiv. This was a big one. This was a triggering one. This is one that I didn't really take a lot of notes on, and I was just kind of hoping for more real conversation. I guess as parents, how did their story affect you?
Well, again, in this country, we've got a real problem with suicide. And I'm happy to report that I think at our school, the parents are starting to understand the importance of the social emotional piece of learning. And our elementary school district recently adopted a formal social emotional curriculum that they're going to roll out in the fall. So I think these are all really good steps to address this issue.
I think if anything came out of COVID, it really put this country's social emotional downfall on the forefront. Because even here, at this school, like last year, we noticed huge changes in the kids' behaviors. Met with the schools, they were seeing the same thing. So we as a school also implemented some new things. And I'm not saying that everything's rainbows and butterflies now, but I definitely see we're on the slope to going back up. I think, this is the curriculum that we did. They said that it could take, 2 to 3 years for it to, and I think I see that because I see where we are in year one, and I think we're only going to get stronger from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize, and I'm hoping you guys, I think I read everything about her and then read that she ended her life. And I think I kind of checked out. I have a real feeling about suicide. And did they say actually why?
No.
I didn't think so.
I
So
don't
I
think so.
took it as, because again, went down another rabbit hole. And I explored the website that they have. And I think it's just a lot about students going to school but not graduating. So I want to say that it's a lot about, the burden college has on you, the expectations on top of your life as well, the expense. So I think because her website, they sponsor a lot. They do a lot of mentoring, they do scholarships. So I think it's to help. And she was the overachiever. She was the one that couldn't just do a project, had to do a project. To even where her mom said, I can't help you. This is too much to take on. So maybe it just got to be too much. I felt like there was a lot of story and not enough details for me, if that makes any sense. So the Lighthouse effect for the strength and honor, offer your presence. So in a situation like this where, nobody would have picked up on this, how can you be a source of strength to somebody when you don't even know they need it?
A few years back, before COVID, in our neck of the woods, a couple of different school systems suffered. I think there was 3 or 4 suicides within a couple of month period with high schoolers. And the high schoolers that took their lives were outstanding students. They were liked by everyone. No one really knew that they were having troubles until they were gone. And then all of a sudden, the stories started coming out. And that's sort of when I was reading that chapter, it brought some of those conversations back because we actually had a program here at our church and invited the community to sort of give us a heads up of what are the signs of someone that's in trouble. And really, it's just listening. Because even like maybe Monica's daughter, when she said she wanted to become a monk, that was maybe a small way of her asking for help, but mom couldn't correlate, what that was all about. So yeah, I mean, it just listening. And today, some kids are just so cruel, and we don't know how some kids just don't know how to react, to come back and stand up for themselves. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think too, Monica said, like when she said that she wanted to become a monk, Monica couldn't wrap her brain around somebody her age thinking on that such a big scope. And I think, as parents or even educators, we really have to understand the multitude of what our kids have today that we didn't. So much exposure, so much knowledge, good and bad. It doesn't, like all social media and everything that we have, the technology, it doesn't have to be bad. And I do feel, in her situation, she really broadened her horizons through a lot of it. And so the fact that she said that, because Monica came, from India, where, and in her day and age, we didn't have the social media. Like, I would probably look at my son and be like, how do you even know what a monk is? Like, they don't teach that in public school. So, I think it's just like to know that, like, these kids are way more ahead of the game than we were at their age on a street smart type of way, because they just, so much is at the tip of their, hand. So it's a lot. And the other thing was to honor lives. They did say, like, when somebody passes away, you rally around that person, right? Like, anything you need, I'm there for you. Well, and life goes on, and you start getting involved in your own life and your own to-do list and your own work hectic, and you check in with those people once in a while, but not as much as you did when the emotion was raw and real. And in this situation, I do feel that her life in one way was honored by their community continuing to like when I was reading the things that they did, this was way past the couple weeks after she passed away. And I think that made a huge difference. And even rightfully, maybe, and I obviously don't know, because I don't know these people, but you would think that it probably was helpful for their marriage, because, statistics, when you lose a child, you lose a lot. And the fact that this community kept them together, I think, kept their other family community together.
Well, and I think too, the way the family found out what she was doing in the back skirts. You know, she was tutoring children to
Right.
help them
Yeah.
to, and so, you know,
For
that
free.
I think was one of, you know, the reasons they chose to honor her life with these scholarships and things, because that is what their daughter was doing before her death, was helping children to, you know, be a better person, to be a better themselves, by concentrating on their schoolwork and persevering over the difficulties.
Right, giving him the means to do it. Because like, you know, you said she was tutoring and she was doing it for free. So they are offering scholarships in her name. So yeah, I will say, in the book, there, I'm not going to read it, but it is a very nice tribute to her legacy, that it does say it's on the foundation's website. I didn't see it, but they could have just revamped the website. But it's definitely, if you haven't read it, it's definitely worth reading. And then just it's the anayafoundation.org. There's a picture of her. It's, I mean, it's, this is kind of what's on the website about for under the, you know, their purpose. It's only a couple years old. You know, it's just, it's really nice to see this kind of stuff when you read the story and you can just kind of dig deeper and you can put a face with the name. And I didn't see her mom, but her dad does serve on the board, very handsome man. And it was just nice. Like I said, I like to see the faces with, oops, the names. And I'm going to stop sharing and look at your faces again. So, but yeah, this chapter was, it was, you know, I always said, if anything, I mean, and this is being recorded. So if anything happens to Jackson, put a fork in me, I'm done. I don't know how you put your feet on the floor after a loss like that. And I hope I never have to find out. But if it does, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 lighthouses that got my back. Melanie, you've been awfully quiet today.
I have a friend that actually I used to work for, and she's from the town that, or lives in the town that Corey does. And her son committed suicide probably about 35, 40 years ago. And for 30 years, she told her story every week. And she formed a group called Lifesavers. And Corey, I'm not sure if it's still there in Carbondale School or not.
Yep.
But it went around to many different states. That she, I believe that it was a peer group, I believe. Corey may know more about it than I do.
Yeah,
I was just,
it's a peer program for high school students, and they go away for a day and a half, and they are really encouraged to talk and share their own stories, things that make them feel vulnerable, but also to learn to recognize not only a change in what people or peers might be saying, but a change in body language, a change in you know, their schedules, their typical behaviors, you know, to just really be mindful of you know, what is out of the ordinary in the people around them.
Yeah. Oh, so she told me one time whenever she was getting ready to retire, I was her secretary at the counseling. I did everything for her. I mean, she was one of these ladies that could look at me and say, I don't want to walk today. I honestly would have carried her. She was like my mother figure. I absolutely, and I still do. I love this lady. She's probably 81 by now. Her name is Judy Ashby. But she told me, she said, I told my story every week. She said, I mean, she went to Congress, she testified, she just championed it. And she said, I finally got to where that I was like, okay, I've told it. And she said it was just as much therapy for me to go into these schools and to help students just to know that my son's life was not in vain, or that what had happened was not in vain. And so when we would have counseling clients that would call and say that, and it happened quite often, that their child had committed suicide, then we had a special room we would take them. But I would watch Judy as she would just go and hold that mom. I could get teared up even thinking about it. But she would hold that mom for, it would probably be about 5 minutes, just in a hug. And it was almost, and she would just say, let me transfer some of your pain to me. Just transfer it to me. And they would always, when they would come up to make another appointment, they would always tell me that hug was worth coming in for. All of the counseling, all of that was great, but that hug. And I think it really taught me the importance of just giving somebody, if you feel it, if you feel the need to, just give them a hug. You know, may not heal everything, but sometimes it's all you can do. And sometimes that's all they need.
Mhm.
Now, Sarah, I didn't know you were going to make me cry today.
I know. I said, I kind of feel like I need a hug right now. Just kidding. But yeah, like I said, it was, as soon as I read that, I was like, okay, pull it together. You've got to do slides. Like, I was just like a ball of emotion. Like, that's a big topic, and it's no matter who it happens to. If you're a mom, I just feel like you feel something.
Well, I think it's one of those topics that we try to sidestep. And when it is right there in our face, it's really hard to still talk about it because it can be so horrific to, the parent that is going through that. I know my oldest grandson was going through a time, his parents divorced, and he was just having a real rough time and was saying, oh, I wish I wasn't here. And one day I went to pick him up to take him to practice, and we couldn't find him. And knowing what he had been saying and things, this Nana went a little berserk. You start calling people and have you seen Cooper? And, and thankfully we got to the school and there he was in the weight room. But for a short, brief moment, when something like that is going on, it became very horrific. So I can't imagine what it feels like when the situation is not so nice.
It's got to be one of the most worst feelings in the world. This wasn't a very uplifting book study. These chapters kind of, it was like, oh, you went from Wells and he did all these great things and he's heroic and he's like, Batman. And then you go to the next one, you're like, oh, like,
yeah,
I'm done for the day. Like, give me my tub of ice cream and my pajamas and
but I think it also shows the resilience of humankind. I think it also shows how that within the aftermath of all of the destruction and all of the raw, horrific pain, that ripple effect of what that person does and how they react. I mean, look at the lives that are touched by Wells. Yeah, it's sad. It's infuriating that it had to have happened, but that's just one life that we know of that as a result of all of the ripples, the ripple effect that it has had, And then look at the same thing with the young lady. I cannot pronounce her name, but look how her
I just said
parents,
it, Anaya, as I was reading
look
it.
how her parents took that
Mhm.
and they turned that the worst trial of their life into one, I mean, a triumph for other people. And then I look
Yeah.
at Judy, same thing. She took
Mhm.
that, and there is no telling how many thousands of kids that she helped save their life. You
Right.
know, and it's what you do with it. It's what you do with that pain and that pressure that can make it into something priceless for someone else.
And I think it brings us back to like the lighthouse. Again, straight from the book, but it says those who tended and cared for the lighthouse had no greater responsibility than to preserve the powerful light that shone so brightly out into the sea. Monica and Rajiv show us how to keep a light burning. They remind us that when we honor a life, we remember why they meant what they meant to us and keep a part of their light with us always. They also show us that when we can share a loved one's light and even have a responsibility to do so.
Mhm.
So, you know, when you hear these stories, until before now, I just thought, wow, those are great people. Like now, they're a lighthouse, and kind of will have a collection of my own lighthouse stories. And I'm a big nerd about quotes and positive stories, and like that's kind of like my thing. So books like this are way in my wheelhouse, and I'm always looking for something to feel good about. So, well, hopefully our last two chapters are like way up here and we can like just rejoice and like laugh and have fun. But you know, life is like this book. Wow. Oh, sad. You know, it's all
Mhm.
over the place. But again, it has one common denominator between every story, and that's the lighthouse. All right.
Inspiring.
One more week. All right. Well, I didn't put in, like I said, any reflection or comments or closing questions or sayings, comments, statements. Okay, so everybody drinks a coffee before next week, okay? Coffee, Red Bull, something. Have a
Next
candy
week's
bar.
our last day, so
I did.
It is.
I think it's just two solemn chapters. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was.
yeah.
It was.
Very. I mean, I feel like he kind of eased us in, you know, like at the very beginning with William, and he just took him in and like, what a great guy. He was an alcoholic. Okay. And then it was like, oh, we just keep getting deeper and deeper. So,
And I so appreciate the good that these families have, you know, taken this on, but I gotta go back to, guys, I'm angry today, I guess. It makes me so mad because I'll hear people say, well, you know, that was probably the purpose. They were supposed to start this foundation, so they had to lose their child in order.
No, no,
No.
no, no,
No.
no.
that just happens to be the thing that came out of the loss of the child.
Mhm.
Right,
It wasn't
Exactly.
the purpose.
right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. I agree completely. I heard
You know,
someone,
was that God's plan all along
Yeah.
so that this
No.
I'm like, no.
no, no.
I get, yeah.
I always have a kind of a